bring in the Deputy Nationals Leader Kevin Hogan. Thanks for your time. This is a mess.
Well, we don't think it's a mess. We think in some ways it's quite clean. I mean, we've got some things to work out. As Nationals, we need to be about clear on what we are. We were trying to look to do an agreement with the Liberal Party. We respect, actually, they need some time and space to work out some policy positions that they need to work out. So I think it's actually quite clean that we do it like this.
But as Andrew and I were just saying, Susan Lee announces a front bench. How do you then have a coalition with Nats on it? She's already appointed all the front benches. Is this just a short-term move? Well,
look, Kieran, our intention is that we hope this is not a long-term position. I mean, we think that, I've said before too, I think that this country is better when there's a strong coalition, both, especially when we're in government. But look, we've had quite a disruptive last couple of weeks. I mean, the election results weren't good for the coalition as a whole.
And so you split.
Well,
that doesn't sound like the way forward.
I drew the analogy, Kieran. I think sometimes when a relationship splits and when relationships get back together after a split, there's a lot more clarity and focus about what went wrong. And with the as the relationship begins, a bit of focus about how that.
But sometimes they never get back.
Well, our wish and hope is, and my belief is that it will.
It will.
And my belief is that the relationship will get back together. Absolutely.
So how long?
Well, again,
if you had your best scenario, how long would this situation be the case where the coalition is split? Because it's only happened one or two times in the history of the coalition.
Yeah, look, it happened in 74 from memory for a year or so. I think in 88 it was for a few months. But look, our intention, the wish of the Nationals is that we get back together again. We get the coalition reform. But right now that is extremely difficult. With the review, with what the Liberal Party need to sort out, I think it's better that they do that cleanly, and I think it's less messy that they can get together and do that.
So how long? Are you thinking weeks?
I don't want to put a timeline on it, Kieran, because that's an expectation that has to happen by then. But my wish is that we get back together. Sooner the better. Now, whether that's weeks, months or years will be determined.
Do you see the point that we're making, though, in terms of what Andrew and I were talking about? If Lee has the front bench and she has her team, how do you then come back together and find spots for your figures once that's done, once that's locked in?
Yeah, well, that will be decisions that will have to be made then, and
so people get dumped at that.
And that will be difficult. But I think again, for them to form government, they'll probably need us to do that. That coalition agreement will need to be formed, and obviously there'll be some that will need to fill positions, and that will need to be dealt with then.
And when you talk about the principle of this, isn't it just impatience? Why not allow the Libs to at least sit and talk?
Well, look, we don't think it's impatience. Some of those, there's four.
The Libs haven't even met yet.
No, but there's four issues that were important to us that were hard-fought wins. I mean, getting a $20 billion regional future fund was not easy, Kieran. Divestiture was not easy. These weren't, let's all agree on this today. Some of those were multi-year policies that we worked on and that we got.
But Susan Lee, she's got a diabolical challenge ahead of her. She's got to meet with her party first, doesn't she? Well, I think it's unreasonable. You put to her, we want this, this and this, before she even gets to meet with her party.
But she was put in a position to us. She was put in a position to us that those things no longer stood. So the position to us is we can now no longer stand by the policies that we've previously agreed. Now, on those four that we had got through the last Parliament, being the Regional Australia Future Fund, being the Universal Service Obligation, being nuclear, and being the last one escapes me, forgive me, but those four policies were important to our room. We didn't want to say, OK, you're now reforming, looking again how you're going to review policies. They're all gone. We don't want to have to go back for our people and re-prosecute those four policies against. That means we'd start from zero and we'd have to get that through a whole process that would not be easy, and we would not be guaranteed.
It just seems a bit unreasonable when she hasn't even been able to go to her party room and say, this is what the Nats want, are you okay with it? And she comes back and says yes. It seems like a benchmark that's impossible for her to meet.
I don't think so, Kieran. We've done this before in a coalition agreement. It's not unreasonable for us to say to our coalition partner, these four principles are really important to us for a coalition agreement.
So she's cut you loose. That's how you see it.
Well, she could not agree to that. And she had a process. I'm not saying what the Liberal Party process is, but there's obviously, she where she arrived at a position she couldn't do it, obviously within some structure of what they need to do as the Liberal Party. But she could not agree to 4 things that are really important to us who represent regional communities. These aren't made up, these aren't, speculative. These are really important principles, policies and issues for our people.
Did the defection of Jacinta Naparjima-Price affect the mood in the party room towards the Libs?
Look, we were disappointed from that. I mean, obviously, we lost a senator who campaigned as a Nationals MP, was supported.
So that soured... That was part of souring the relationship.
I think souring for me is too strong. I was disappointed by that, but that wasn't the determining factor, and it didn't sour it to the point that was the cause of this. The principles of these policies are far more important than what happened with Jacinta. Far more important. If Jacinta had stayed in the room, we would have still had these principles that we think are important for our regional communities top shelf.
The timing of it, though, just seems... I find it hard to get my head around because it's before that Susan Lee's been able to meet with her leadership, with her team, with the party, and you've expected her to tick, tick, tick. It looks like you're trying to distance yourself from the Liberal brand right now because the Nationals did well at the election and the Liberals tanked. Is that right?
Not at all, Kieran. And we want the Liberals to do well and we want to support them in doing well. But look, I wasn't involved in all these conversations, but the timeline initially was put on us by the Liberals. The timeline was, we want you to sign up to a coalition agreement by the weekend. And we said, well, give us a bit of time because we're going to have to go through our party room process of what we want to be part of that. So we followed our process and said, and our room, again, this is the will of the party room that I'm part of. This was the Nationals Federal Parliamentary Party room that decided this position as well. So we went through a process and we actually then took our foot off the pedal over the weekend out of respect for Susan as well. So part of the timeline was their timeline about we want to sign this sooner rather than later.
But still, you look at the timeline, 7 days since she became leader, her mother died, and now you're dropping this. Well, it's not a lot of time for her to get her ducks in a row.
Well, Kieran, we would say, with all due respect, and I'm respectful of what you're saying, and again, we wish Susan well, they could have said yes. They could have said, look, those were 4 policy positions that we had as a coalition in the last parliament that went through a rigorous process. We understand that they're respectful to you because we went back on Friday and said these are really important positions for us and we wanted them. We weren't walking out on Friday. We wanted them to review, have time to look at and to discuss these 4 principles.
Just finally,
they could have come back and said yes.
Do you accept that this is one of the lowest ebbs for Conservative politics in Australian history right now? The coalition split?
No, I think one of the lowest ebbs for the coalition historically has been 2 weeks ago on Saturday night. I mean, the result for the coalition, our result was okay, but the coalition as a whole, that was a low ebb. I hope history, Kieran, looks back on this as being a really positive day for the coalition, that from today, some real clear focus was given and some really good results happened from this.
OK, well, we'll see. Kevin Hogan, thanks for your time. A big day in politics nonetheless, regardless of whether it's positive, negative or however this transpires. We appreciate you making the time.